Hello, and welcome to Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to do an introduction for a historic wargaming campaign set on the invasion of Virginia in 1781. So let's get started. Virginia invaded. December 30th, 1780. Commodore James Barron of the Virginia State Navy, the commander of the Virginia State Navy brig Liberty, spotted a fleet of nearly 30 vessels entering into the Chesapeake Bay. Not knowing what their intention was, Barron immediately sails to Hampton. He raises the alarm in that city. He sends word to General Nelson, the commander of the local militia at Yorktown, to warn them. And General Nelson sends word to the governor of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, in the new capital at Richmond. That word will arrive in Richmond by the 31st. Unknown to anybody at the time that this fleet had on board it the former American hero, now famous traitor, Benedict Arnold. After switching sides to the British, he's made Major General and he's given command of 1,800 men, given instructions to first form a deep water port at Portsmouth to which they can endeavor to provide support for loyalist supporters in the Norfolk, Princess Anne, Portsmouth region, and also to disrupt the flow of supplies from Virginia to General Greene's armies in the Carolinas. General Arnold is also given the latitude to destroy the means of this supply by attacking several depots and manufacturing areas along the James River, as long as he can do so without putting the security of the post at Portsmouth at risk. With Arnold on board these ships were 750 men of Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Dundas's 80th Edinburgh Royal Volunteers, a detachment of 110 German Jaegers, all armed with rifles under the command of Johann Ewald. There were 2 loyalist units, 500 men of the Queen's Rangers, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel John Graves Simcoe, and also 200 men of the Loyal American Regiment, commanded by Colonel Beverly Robinson Jr., himself a nephew of a former Speaker of the House of Burgesses, the People's Representatives in the colony of Virginia. A man dishonored himself at his death back in 65? 64, 65. That was John Robinson. With them also is the 30 men that make up the American Legion. That is Arnold's direct command of loyalists. There were 30 pioneers. I'm not sure where they came from. 45 New York volunteers commanded by John Althouse, referred to as Althouse's company. Again, all armed with rifles. And 70 men of the Royal Artillery and their pieces. This flotilla will come into the James River the evening of the 30th. They'll start separating into smaller vessels for their later expeditions, and on December 31st they will begin operations which will eventually lead to the attack, a very successful attack, on the new capital at Richmond. We're going to be playing this as a series of linked scenarios. I don't intend to play it all directly in a row, so this will be played over probably a few months in the end. So I'm going to use 2 games that were discussed quite frequently in my previous skirmish videos for small-scale skirmish. These are both more large-scale skirmish games, and that is going to be Muskets and Tomahawks by Studio Tomahawk and Sharp Practice by Two Fat Lardies. I am far more familiar with Sharp Practice than I am with Muskets and Tomahawks, so bear with me on that. But we will alternate some of these scenarios back and forth between those roles, or I'll pick which ones I maybe, as this unfolds, that I think are better for the scenario that we're portraying at the time. They will be interspersed with videos on some of the other games and subjects I run, so this will probably take a bit of time to get through the whole process. The other thing that's probably worthy of mentioning, in the original event, Arnold was almost unopposed. We are going to be doing this as a slight alternate history campaign. Jefferson was warned, and I should probably mention that even before this event, before December when the Arnold's invasion came, back in October, 2 months earlier, General Leslie landed at Portsmouth with similar orders. And Virginia went into a complete panic. They had no idea what these men were for. They didn't know what their intentions were. The war had returned to Virginia. Virginia was involved in the war early on, back in 75 when the war began. But once the governor left, in about halfway through 76, things quieted down. There were Virginians involved on every front of the war, but the war itself wasn't, for the most part, taking place within the soil of Virginia. But Leslie arrives in October, the state goes into a panic, and almost as soon as he comes, he just leaves. Unbeknownst to the Virginians, this was because of situations that were unfolding in the South that had changed his reasons for being here. Now, one would think that with this warning of Leslie and Virginia finding itself entirely unprepared for an invasion, that they would take actions to improve that lot. They did not. On the 31st of December, Jefferson learns that a fleet has come into the Chesapeake Bay. At the time, he thinks they may be French. He refuses to take any action. He delays for another 2 days until he receives final confirmation that they are actually the British, and then puts the orders forward. He responds far too slowly and therefore puts Virginia in an area of weakened defense. A lot of the militia that were already in the area in Lower Peninsula where the attacks are beginning were unprepared and unarmed, suffering from a want of ammunition. And this is really going to hinder the American response to Arnold. In fact, Jefferson will end up losing his position as governor for this, probably. He wasn't reelected to the office. And there were threats of putting him under charges for the failed defense of Virginia. Also, receiving some of this blame, at the same occasion this is all occurring, General Baron von Steuben is just across the river from Yorktown. He's in the area of Petersburg, and he is there to recruit and train men that are eventually going to join Greene in the Carolinas. Steuben mistakenly believes that he and his men are the target of Arnold's invasion, and so he refuses to remove himself from that until too late. To make this an enjoyable game, we're going to assume that the governor responded a little more quickly to the unfolding threat in the peninsula, that he took stronger action towards stopping that, and we're going to possibly, if necessary, lean on the involvement of these untrained new Continental regulars under von Steuben. That's going to be a significant change. The game just wouldn't be fun the way that the thing really unfolds. There's a couple of very small skirmishes. We're going to be playing those skirmishes. They were very one-sided in reality. They may still prove that way because a lot of it is still just militia against more experienced loyalists and in some cases regular British soldiers. We'll see where this takes us. I hope you're interested in following along with us in this campaign. As I mentioned, I'm going to use sharp practice and muskets and tomahawks. I'm also using the inspiration for the scenario referring to the works primarily of three men. That is Colonel Simcoe's memoirs themselves, which are readily available out there, the commander of the Queen's Rangers. Also Captain Ewald of the Jaegers, his memoirs also are in print and regularly available today. And then we're going to use The Invasion of Virginia in 1781 by my friend Michael Cesare, which is one of the few sources I can find that talks much about the American side of the war. The American situation, they were so surprised and so confused that a lot of that's been left as a gap in the history. So I hope you will follow along in this campaign. As I say, it's going to take some time probably, but I hope you'll follow along. I hope you enjoy it. If you are interested, I hope you'll go ahead and hit like. If you found the idea of this useful, I hope you'll hit subscribe and ring our notification bell. If you have any comments or any notes or ideas you'd like to include in this, please put those in the comment section down below. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you look forward to this campaign as much as I do. Till next time. Cheers.